The first thing I saw was my mother's jewelry box. It was sitting on the hallway floor, lid open, contents spilling onto the hardwood like broken teeth. I stood in my own doorway, my own house, and I couldn't move. My clothes were next piled against the wall in black trash bags, 3 of them stuffed so full the plastic was stretching at the seams. I heard myself say something I don't remember what, maybe just a sound. A noise that came from somewhere deep in my chest. Then I saw the lock, a brand new padlock, shiny brass, hanging from my bedroom door. My bedroom, my father's bedroom, the room where he took his last breath 11 months ago, while I held his hand and promised him I would be okay, and she had put a lock on. I dropped my keys. They hit the floor with a sound that seemed too loud, too real. My legs felt like they were filled with sandy. Walked toward the door. Slow, each step felt like walking through water. I touched the lock. It was cold from inside the room. I heard her voice. "Oh, good. You're home, Linda." My stepmother. She said it like she was commenting on the weather, like this was normal, like my entire life wasn't scattered across the hallway floor. "I need to talk to you about the sleeping arrangements," she continued. The door swung open, and there she was, standing in my bedroom doorway, wearing my father's robe. The blue one with the coffee stain on the sleeve that I couldn't bring myself to wash out because it still smelled like him. She smiled. "This room gets much better light than the guest room, I'm sure you understand." I didn't understand. I didn't understand anything. My mouth opened, but no words came out. She stepped aside and gestured into the room like she was showing off a new car. "I've already moved my things in. It just makes more sense, don't you think? You're young, you don't need all this space." I looked past Hermie mother's dresser, the one she'd brought from her grandmother's house in Virginia, the one with the chipped corner from when I was 7 and tried to climb it. It was in the corner now, covered with Linda's makeup, foundation bottles, and lipstick tubes scattered across the surface like an invasion. My father's knitstand, the one he'd built himself in his garage workshop 20 years ago. Linda's phone was charging on it. Her reading glasses sat next to a glass of wine that had left a ring on the wood. My parents' wedding photo was gone. In its place was a picture of Linda at some beach resort, smiling, sunglasses, holding a cocktail. I felt something crack inside my chest. "Get out." The words came out quiet, too quiet, almost a whisper. Linda tilted her head like she hadn't heard me. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my room." She laughed. She actually laughed. "Sweetheart, let's not be dramatic. Your father would have wanted." "Don't." My voice was shaking now. "Don't you dare tell me what my father would have wanted." Linda's smile flickered just for a second, then it was back, harder now, the edges sharp. "I was his wife, Megan, for 3 years. I think I know. You were his mistake." The words hung in the air between us. Linda's jaw tightened. I watched the muscles in her neck cord. "That's a horrible thing to say." "It's the truth." She stepped toward me close enough that I could smell her perfume, that sickly sweet vanilla that always gave me a headache. "I'm going to pretend you didn't say that," she said. Her voice was low now, controlled. "Because you're clearly upset, and I understand change is hard." "Change?" I heard myself laugh. It sounded foreign, broken. "You threw my mother's things on the floor. You took my father's room. Our room." She cut me off like a knife. "It was our room, Megan, mine and your father's, for 3 years. Where do you think I slept? On the couch." "He's dead." The words tasted like ash. "He's dead, Linda. He's been dead for almost a year, and this is my house." Something shifted in her eyes, then something cold. "For now," she said softly, and she closed the door in my face. "I need you to understand something. I need you to understand who I was before that night. Before the locks, before the trash bags, before I learned what Linda really was. My name is Megan Price. I'm 27 years old, and that house, the one Linda was trying to claim, my great-grandfather built it in 1952 with his own hands, brick by brick, board by board. It passed to my grandfather, then to my father, then to me. 4 generations of my family have lived in that house, have loved in that house, have died in that house. My mother took her last breath in the living room, on the hospital bed we'd set up by the window so she could watch the birds at the feeder. I was 8 years old. I remember holding her hand. It was so thin by then, like paper stretched over bone. Squeezed my fingers, barely the weakest pressure. "Take care of Daddy," she'd whispered. "He's going to need you." And I did for 19 years. It was just me and Dad. We made breakfast together on Sunday mornings, pancakes from scratch. The recipe my grandmother had taught him: buttermilk, a dash of vanilla, a secret pinch of cinnamon. We watched old movies on Friday nights, the black and white ones, Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon. He'd do all the voices and make me laugh until my stomach hurt. We fixed things together. The leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, the creaky step on the back porch, the shed door that never closed quite right. He taught me how to use a hammer, how to change a tire, how to look someone in the eyes when they were trying to lie to you. People tell you who they are. Maggie, he'd say, you just have to listen. I should have listened sooner, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The thing is, Dad was lonely. I could see it even when he tried to hide it, the way he'd look at old photos of Mom when he thought I wasn't watching, the way he'd set 2 coffee cups on the counter sometimes, out of habit, then catch himself and put one back, the way he'd fall asleep in his chair with the TV on because the silence was too loud. I was 24 when I finally said something. We were sitting on the back porch. It was October. The leaves were turning. That golden hour light was streaming through the trees, making everything look like a photograph. Dad? He looked up from his crossword puzzle. You should go on a date. He blinked at me once, twice, then he laughed, that deep, warm sound that always made me feel safe. A date? Maggie, I'm 62 years old. Who's going to want to date me? Someone? I said, you deserve to be happy. He got quiet, then set down his puzzle, looked out at the yard. I am happy. He said softly, I have you, I have this house, I have your mother's memory. It's okay to want more. Dad, he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he reached over and squeezed my hand. You're a good kid. He said, you know that? 6 months later, he met Linda. She was volunteering at the hospital gift shop. Dad had gone in for a routine checkup, high blood pressure. Nothing serious. He'd stopped to buy a crossword puzzle book on his way out. That's how he told it. Anyway, she was standing behind the counter, he said, his eyes bright in a way I hadn't seen in years, and she asked me if I needed help finding anything, and I said, no, ma'am, I know exactly what I'm looking for, and she laughed. He got this faraway look when he talked about her. She has the most beautiful laugh. Maggie, the first time I met Linda, she brought flower stargazer, lilac pink and white, strong perfume. She stood on our front porch in a sundress and heels, holding the bouquet like an offering. Her smile was wide, maybe too wide, but I told myself I was being paranoid. You must be Megan. She said my name like we were already old friends. I've heard so much about you. Your father just adores you. She stepped inside before I could invite her, looked around the living room with those calculating eyes. Oh, what a lovely home. So much character. Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle, but Dad was beaming, hovering near her like she was made of light. So I shook her hand. I smiled back. I told myself to give her a chance. She was 54, divorced, no kids, by choice. She said, with a little wave of her hand, I never wanted to be tied down. She'd been a real estate agent before she retired. I just got tired of the grind. She explained, life's too short to spend it showing strangers around empty houses. She said she'd moved to our town 2 years ago, wanted a quieter life, a fresh start. She was charming. I'll give her that. She knew how to make Dad laugh, how to make him feel young, how to make him forget. For a few hours that Mom was gone in the first year, I almost believed it was real. The dinners at our house, Dad cooking his famous pot roast, Linda complimenting every bite, the Saturday outings, antiquing farmers markets, day trips to the coast, the way she'd touch his arm when he talked like everything he said was fascinating. I watched my father come back to life. I watched the shadows lift from his eyes, watched him stand a little taller, smile a little wider, and even though something in my gut whispered, be careful, I pushed it down because he was happy, and after everything he'd been through, didn't he deserve that? They got engaged on Christmas Eve. We were sitting by the tree, the one Dad and I always decorated together, the same ornaments we'd used since I was a baby. The angel topper my grandmother had crocheted. Linda was wearing red lipstick to match. Dad got down on one knee, his bad knee, the one that always bothered him in cold weather, and he held out a ring, Mom's ring, the emerald and diamond band that had been in our family for 4 generations. My throat closed. I watched Linda's eyes light up as she saw it. That unmistakable flash of recognition, of calculation. Oh, James, she breathed. It's gorgeous. She slid it onto her finger like it had always belonged there. I excused myself to the kitchen, stood at the sink, hands gripping the counter, breathing through the tightness in my chest. Dad found me there a few minutes later. Maggie? I didn't turn around. That was Mom's ring. A pause, a heavy silence. I know, he said quietly, but she would have wanted. Don't. I turned then. My eyes were burning, but I wouldn't let the tears fall. Don't tell me what she would have wanted. You don't know, none of us know, she's gone. Dad, his face crumpled just for a second, and I hated myself for putting that look there. I'm sorry. I whispered, I need time. He nodded, pulled me into a hug. Take all the time you need. Sweetheart, Linda's not going anywhere. That was the problem. They got married on Valentine's Day, a small ceremony at the courthouse, just the three of us. Plus a witness they'd pulled from the hallway, some guy in a baseball cap who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Linda wore a cream-colored suit, pearls, Mom's ring catching the fluorescent light. I wore black. No one said anything about it. The reception was at an Italian restaurant downtown, red checkered tablecloths, candles, and wine bottles. Dean Martin playing softly over the speakers. Dad was glowing. Linda was already 3 glasses of champagne in by the time the appetizers arrived. To family, she said, raising her glass toward me. Her words were starting to slur at the edges. To new beginnings. I clinked my water glass against her champagne flute and said nothing later. In the bathroom, I found her reapplying her lipstick. She saw me in the mirror and smiled. Having fun? Sure. She turned to face me, leaned back against the sink. That calculating look again, the one that disappeared whenever Dad was watching, you know. Megan, I hope we can be friends. Friends? Or at least civil for your father's sake. I watched her carefully. I've always been civil. Linda, of course you have, she said smoothly, but I've noticed the looks, the little comments, the way you tense up whenever I touch anything in the house. My jaw tightened. It's my mother's house. Was. She said it softly, almost gently. It was your mother's house, now it's your father's and mine. The temperature in the bathroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. The house is in a trust, I said carefully. It passes to me when your father dies. Yes, I know. She waved her hand dismissively. Your father explained all of that, very thorough. Your family. She stepped closer. Her perfume invaded my space, but that's years away, isn't it? Decades, hopefully, and in the meantime, we all have to learn to share. Something in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. I'm very good at sharing, Megan, are you? She patted my cheek, then she walked out. I stood there, hands shaking, heart pounding. That was the night I started watching her more closely. The first year of the marriage was a slow slide, nothing dramatic, nothing I could point to and say *C. She's awful *, just small things, paper cuts that added up. Linda redecorated the living room. The furniture is so dated, she'd said to Dad, her hand on his arm. Don't you think some fresh pieces would brighten things up? The couch my mother had picked out? Gone, donated to Goodwill while I was at work. The armchair my grandfather used to sit in, replaced with some modern leather thing that squeaked when you sat down. The curtains my grandmother had sewn. They were falling apart. Sweetie, I did you a favor. I came home that day to a house I barely recognized. Linda thought it needed updating. Dad said he looked almost apologetic, almost, and what do you think? He hesitated. I think change can be good. But I saw the way his eyes lingered on the empty corner where Mom's reading chair used to be. The one she'd brought from her college apartment, the one he'd proposed to her and Linda, was slowly erasing my mother from the house, and Dad was letting Harry started spending more time in my room. The master bedroom that Dad had insisted I move into after Mom died. It's the biggest, he'd said, and you need the space for your art stuff. Your mom would want you to have it. He'd taken the guest room down the hall. Said he couldn't sleep in the master anymore. Too many memories. Linda moved in with him there, the small room with the tiny closet and the window that stuck. She complained about it constantly. It's so cramped. James, I can barely fit my clothes, and the bathroom is practically a closet. I know, honey, but Megan's in the master, and I'm not saying anything about Megan. A pause. That's sweet. Poisonous tone. I'm just saying it's hard for me, that's all. I heard these conversations through walls, through closed doors, little drips of acid. Then Dad got sick, pancreatic cancer stage 4. The doctor delivered the news in a small beige room with bad lighting and plastic chairs. I remember the hum of the air conditioning, the tick of the clock on the wall, the way Dad's hand felt in mine, suddenly fragile, suddenly old. How long? He asked. His voice was steady, calmer than mine would ever Beatty doctor a young woman with kind eyes, and a gentle voice shifted in her chair. Every case is different. Mr. Price, but typically 6 months to a year. I'm so sorry. 6 months to a year. The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. This was my father, the strongest person I knew, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who held me when I cried at Mom's funeral, who could fix anything with duct tape and determination. He couldn't be dying. I looked at Linda. She was sitting on Dad's other side. Her face was pale, her hands folded in her lap, but her eyes, there was something in her eyes that I couldn't name, something that flickered there for just a moment before she composed herself later. I would recognize it, but in that moment I was too lost in my own grief to see the months that followed, our hospital visits and medication schedules and sleepless nights. I took a leave of absence from work. I was a graphic designer at a small marketing firm downtown. My boss, Sarah, was understanding. Take all the time you need, she said. Family comes first. So I came home. I set up a hospital bed in the living room by the window, just like we'd done for Mom. I made smoothies when Dad couldn't eat solid food. I read to him from his favorite books. I held his hand during the bad nights. And Linda was barely there. I can't handle hospitals, she said. When Dad was admitted for his first round of treatment, they make me anxious. She stopped by once, stayed for 20 minutes, complained about the parking at home. She retreated to the guest room door, closed TV on. He'd hear her on the phone, sometimes laughing, making plans with friends. Once I heard her say, "I know. It's just so exhausting, you have no idea." She wasn't talking about Dad's illness, she was talking about me. The daughter is always here, she continued, hovering like I can't take care of my own husband. I stood in the hallway, listening, my hands curled into fists, so I wanted to scream instead. I went back to Dad's side, adjusted his pillows, gave him his medication. He looked up at me with those tired, yellowing eyes. "You're a good kid, Meggie," he whispered. "Don't know what I'd do without you." I kissed his forehead. "You'll never have to find out." But he would, we all would. My father died on a Tuesday in March. It was raining, one of those cold, gray rains that feels like the sky itself is grieving. I was holding his hand when it happened. Linda was in the kitchen, making herself coffee. I felt his grip loosen, saw his chest rise one last time, then fall, then stay still. The room went quiet, not just silent, quiet, like the whole world was holding its breath. "Dad?" My voice cracked. "Dad, please, please. Dad, please don't." But he was gone. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours, time had stopped meaning anything at some point. Linda came in. She stood in the doorway, coffee cup in hand. "Is he?" I couldn't speak. I just looked at her. She set down the cup, walked over, placed her hand on Dad's forehead. "Oh," she said softly. "Oh my, that was Ito." My 2 words, too worthless. Empty words. Then she pulled out her phone. "I should call the funeral home," she said. "We'll need to make arrangements." I watched her dial, listened to her speak in that calm, efficient voice, and I thought, you don't even care. You never cared. The funeral was small, just how Dad wanted a few of his old friends from the hardware store. Some neighbors. My boss, Sarah, came with flowers. Linda wore a black dress that was just a little too tight, a little too low-cut. Cried at all the right moments, said all the right things, but her tears dried too quickly, and I noticed she was already wearing a new ring on her right hand, a diamond cocktail ring I'd never seen before. After the service, the lawyer came to the house, Gerald Patterson. He'd been our family's attorney for 40 years, handled my grandfather's will, my mother's now, my father's. Sat at the dining room table, the new one Linda had bought, and spread out the documents. Linda sat across from him. I sat at the end. "The estate is straightforward," Gerald said, adjusting his glasses, "as per the family trust established by your grandfather. The house and its contents passed to you, Megan. It's been that way for 3 generations. I nodded. I knew this. Linda's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but I saw it. "There's also a life insurance policy," Gerald continued. $250,000. James updated the beneficiary last year. Linda leaned forward. "I'm the beneficiary," she said. "James told me." Gerald cleared his throat. "Actually, number James changed it back 3 months ago. The sole beneficiary is Megan." The silence was deafening. Linda's face went white, then red, then white again. That's not possible," he told me. "I have the signed documents right here, Mrs. Price." Gerald slid a paper toward her. "James was very specific. He wanted to ensure Megan was taken care of." Linda stared at the paper like it was a snake about to bite her. "He was sick," she said slowly. He wasn't in his right mind, this can be contested. He was of sound mind when he signed. I had 2 witnesses present, as well as his oncologist's written confirmation of his mental capacity. I looked at Linda for the first time. I saw her mask slip completely. Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, I saw the truth, pure, undiluted hatred. We'll discuss this later, she said through clenched teeth. She stood, smoothed her dress, walked out of the room. I heard her footsteps going up the stairs. Heard the guest room door slam. Gerald gathered his papers. I'm sorry you have to deal with this, Megan, he said quietly. Your father was a good man. I know. He loved you very much. I know that too. Gerald paused at the door. If she causes any trouble, call me. The documents are airtight. But some people don't accept reality easily. I thanked him, showed him out then. I stood alone in the hallway of my house, 4 generations of my family, and one intruder who wasn't going to give up without a fight. Linda didn't leave. I thought she would after the will, reading after the insurance bombshell. I thought she would pack her bags and disappear back to wherever she came from, but she stayed. I need time to grieve, she said. When I finally asked her, as gently as I could, about her plans, we were in the kitchen. I was making dinner. She was sitting at the counter with a glass of wine, her third. I understand, I said carefully, but you have friends, family. Surely they're somewhere. My friends are hours away, and my family. She waved her hand dismissively. We're not close. This is my home now. Meg and I lived here for 3 years. As a guest, the words came out sharper than I intended. Linda's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? The house belongs to me, I said. It always has. You knew that when you married my father. She set down her wine glass carefully. Deliberately, your father and I had an understanding, she said slowly, about what would happen after he was gone. He promised me. He didn't promise you the house. He couldn't. It's in a trust. Not the house? She smiled, that thin, sharp smile. Security. He promised me security. The life insurance was supposed to go to you, I said, until he changed his mind, until you poisoned him against me. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. What? Don't play innocent. Linda stood. Her voice was rising now. All those months you spent taking care of him, whispering in his ear, turning him against his own wife. I was taking care of my dying father. Something you refused to do. I couldn't watch him. She stopped, took a breath, composed herself. I couldn't watch him fade away. It was too painful. It was too inconvenient. You mean? Linda grabbed her wine glass so hard I thought it would shatter. You have no idea what I went through. I know exactly what you went through. Nothing. You went through nothing. You hid in your room while I held his hand, while I cleaned up after him, while I watched him disappear piece by piece. My voice was shaking now, tears burning behind my eyes. You didn't even say goodbye. Linda, you were making coffee when he died. She flinched for just a second. Something like guilt flickered across her face, then it was gone. I'm not leaving, she said flatly. This is my home too, and I have rights. You have the right to find your own place to live, that's it. We'll see what a judge says about that. She walked out, her heels clicking on the hardwood that was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Linda dug in. She stopped paying for groceries, stopped contributing to utilities, started treating the house like it was already hers. She rearranged the furniture again without asking. She threw out the last of my mother's spices from the kitchen cabinet, said they were expired and taking up space. She started having friends over, loud women with louder laughs who drank wine on my porch and talked about me like I wasn't there. She's so controlling. I heard Linda say once, won't even let me decorate my own home. Your home? I bit my tongue so hard it bled. I called Gerald, explained what was happening. You can evict her, he said, but it's a process, 30 days notice minimum, and if she contests it, it could take months. Months? I'm sorry, Megan, the law isn't always fast, so I waited. I spent most of my time in my bedroom. The master bedroom, the one place Linda hadn't invaded. He'd sit at my mother's dresser and look at the old photos I kept in the top drawer, Mom and Dad on their wedding day, me as a baby, wrapped in a yellow blanket, the 3 of us at the beach when I was 6. He'd run my fingers over the worn edges and try to remember what peace felt like. Then the comments started. That room is really too big for one person, Linda said at breakfast. One morning I looked up from my cereal. Excuse me? The master bedroom, it's the biggest in the house, and you're just one person. I'm just saying it seems a little selfish. Selfish? I'm in that tiny guest room, barely enough space to breathe, and You have all that room to yourself. It doesn't seem fair. I set down my spoon. My father gave me that room after my mother died. It's been my room for 19 years. Your father isn't here anymore. The words landed like a slap, and I am. She continued, I'm still here, and I think as the surviving spouse, you deserve nothing. I stood my chair scraped against the floor. You were married to my father for 3 years. I've been in that room for 19. My mother took her last breath in that room. My grandmother was born in that room. It is my room in my house, and you don't get to take it from me. Linda's face went cold. We'll see about that. I didn't know what she meant, not until I came home that night, not until I saw my mother's jewelry box on the floor, not until I saw the lock on my door. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room. On the squeaky leather couch Linda had picked out, staring at the wall. My belongings were still in the hallway. 3 black trash bags and a scattered jewelry box. The lock was still on my door, and Linda was in my room, sleeping in my bed like she had every right around 3 a.m. I heard her phone buzzing, vibrating against the nightstand, then her voice, muffled through the door, but I could hear enough. I know it's taken longer than I thought. She's stubborn. A pause. The room thing is working. She's rattled a few more weeks. And she cracked. I moved closer, pressed my ear against the door, of course. The house is worth it. You've seen the comps, easily 700, maybe 8 with the right buyer. My blood went cold. Comps buyer 700,000. She was planning to sell the house. My house. Don't worry. I've got it handled. She's just a kid, doesn't know anything about real estate. By the time she figures it out. There was a laugh, low and cruel. She'd be lucky to get out with her clothes. I stepped back from the door. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I wanted to burst in there, scream at her, throw her out with my bare hands, but something stopped me. Evidence. I thought I need evidence. I went to the kitchen, found a notebook and pen, started writing down everything I'd heard. Then I waited. The next morning, Linda emerged from my room around 10. She was wearing a silk robe I didn't recognize, probably bought with the money Dad had given her for household expenses. Good morning, she said brightly, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't stolen my room, like I hadn't heard her plotting on the phone. Morning. I kept my voice flat, neutral. I was thinking we should have a conversation today. She continued, pouring herself coffee, about the living situation now that we've both had time to cool down. Sure. Great, let's sit. We sat at the dining table across from each other, like two generals before a battle. Here's what I'm proposing. Linda began. I'll stay in the master bedroom. You can have the guest room. It's perfectly adequate. I said nothing. I think that's fair given my status as James's widow and given the stress I've been under. Still nothing. Linda frowned. Well, what do you think? I think, I said slowly, that you should get out of my house. Her face hardened. We've been over this. You were on the phone last night around 3 a.m. She froze. I heard everything. Linda, the comps, the buyers, your little plan to sell the house out from under me. For a moment she didn't move, didn't breathe, and she laughed. You were eavesdropping? You were plotting. I was having a private conversation about selling my house, a house you have no legal right to. Legal right? She stood. Her voice was rising. I was married to your father. That gives me rights, spousal rights, property rights. The house is in a trust. It's been in a trust for 3 generations. You have no claim to it. None. Gerald explained this to you. Gerald is a senile old man who probably hasn't updated his legal knowledge since the 80s. Gerald is one of the best estate attorneys in the state, and he specifically structured the trust so that no spouse could ever claim the property. It was my grandfather's wish. My grandmother supported it. My mother supported it. My father supported it. The house stays in the bloodline, period. Linda's nostrils flared. You can't prove anything. You heard half a conversation in the middle of the night that means nothing. Maybe, but I can evict you, which I'm doing today. I pulled out the letter I'd prepared, 30 days notice. Just like Gerald advised, I slid it across the table. Linda stared at it. You have 30 days to vacate the premises, I said after that. I'll have you removed by the sheriff. She didn't touch the letter. You think you've won, she said quietly. You think you're so smart. I don't think anything. I'm just protecting what's mine. Your father would be ashamed of you. The words were meant to hurt. They did, but I didn't let it show. My father would be ashamed of you, I said, for showing up at his house, marrying him for his money, ignoring him while he died, and trying to steal his home from his daughter. Linda's face twisted. I loved him. You loved his wallet. There's a difference. She stood so fast her chair tipped over. You have no idea what you're starting. She hissed. I have resources, friends, connections. I will make your life a living hell. You already have. I stood to 30 days. Linda, not a day more. I walked out of the room. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was iron. The next 3 weeks were war. Linda refused to leave my room, kept the padlock on the door, moved more of her things. Eni slept on the couch. When I could sleep at all, she started having friends over every night. Parties that went until 2 a.m., wine bottles piling up in the recycling. Cigarette butts on the porch. She accidentally deleted all the family photos from the shared computer. She threw out the box of my mother's recipes. The ones handwritten on index cards, the ones I'd been saving since I was 8 years old. That one. Nearly broke. May found them in the garbage, covered in coffee grounds and eggshells. I fished them out with shaking hands. Tried to clean them off, but the ink had run. Most of them were illegible. I cried for an hour, then I got angry. I started documenting everything, every party, every piece of property. She destroyed every threat, every violation of the 30-day notice. I took photos, made videos, kept a detailed log with dates and times. I also started digging into Linda's past. It wasn't hard. Her Facebook was public. Her name was unusual enough that a simple Google search turned up plenty, and what I found made my stomach turn. Linda had been married before 3 times before her first husband, Marcus Chen, married in 1998. Divorced in 2001, he died 5 years later, heart attack. He was only 42. Her second husband, David Green, married in 2006. Divorced in 2010. I found an old news article. David had been a property developer, wealthy. The divorce had been ugly. He accused her of marrying him for his money. The court dismissed it, but awarded her a significant settlement. Her third husband, Robert Walsh, married in 2015. Divorced in 2018. Robert was harder to find, but eventually I tracked down his obituary. He died of cancer 6 months after the divorce. He'd left everything to his children from a previous marriage. Linda had contested the will and lost 3 husbands, all older, all wealthy, 2 of them dead within years of knowing her. Now my father, husband number 4. I sat in front of my laptop, hands trembling. Asterisk, what kind of person marries 4 dying men? Asterisk, I thought of my father, the way he'd lit up when he talked about Linda, the way she'd made him feel young again, alive again. Had she known he was sick before they even met? The hospital gift shop, that's where they'd met. Dad was there for a checkup, a routine blood pressure appointment. But what if Linda had known something more? What if someone had told her about the wealthy widower with the family trust? I couldn't prove it, but I knew deep in my bones. I knew Linda was a predator and my father was her prey. I called Gerald the next morning, told him everything I'd found. He was quiet for a long time. This is concerning, he finally said, but circumstantial. Being married multiple times isn't a crime. 3 of her husbands are dead, 1 within years of their divorce. People die. Megan, it's tragic, but it happens. What about the pattern? Older men, wealthy men, all targeted at vulnerable moments? It's a pattern, he admitted, but patterns aren't proof. I wanted to scream. What do I do? You stick to the eviction. The 30 days is almost up if she doesn't leave voluntarily. We go to court. I'll file the paperwork today, and if she destroys more of my things, document everything, we'll add it to the case. I hung up feeling hollow. The law was too slow, too careful, too blind to what was right in front of it, but I wasn't that night. I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until Linda was drunk. She usually was by 10 p.m. THEN. I slipped into my father's old study, the one he'd used as a home office, the one Linda had barely touched because it was too cramped and boring. I opened his filing cabinet and I found something, a folder marked Linda Private. Inside were documents, letters, a handwritten note. The note was in my father's handwriting, shaky near the end, but legible. It said, asterisk, Megan, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you sooner. I found out things about Linda that worried me. I changed the insurance. I wanted to change more, but I ran out of time. Gerald has copies of everything. Please protect the house. Protect yourself. I love you, Dad, asterisk. My vision blurred. I read it again and again. He knew at the end. He knew, had tried to warn me, tried to protect me, and he'd run out of time. I clutched the note to my chest and let the tears come. #, Chapter 11. The LOCKS, the 30th day, arrived on a Thursday. I woke up at dawn, sat on the couch my bed for the past month and watched the sun rise through the living room window. Linda hadn't packed a thing. It didn't mention leaving, hadn't even acknowledged the eviction notice at 8 a.m. I called Gerald. It's day 30. I said, she hasn't left. Then we proceed. I'll contact the sheriff's office. They can enforce the eviction. How long? A few days, maybe a week. They have to schedule it, file paperwork. A week? I'm sorry. Megan, it's the process. I hung up a week more of Linda in my house, in my room, destroying my memories. Plotting her schemes. I couldn't wait a week. I walked to the hardware store on Main Street. The one my father used to take me to when I was little. The owner, Bill, had known my grandfather, Megan. Bill's face lit up when I walked in. Haven't seen you in ages. How are you holding up? I'm okay, Bill. I need some locks. Locks? New locks for all the exterior doors and the master bedroom. Bill raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. I've got what you need. I paid in cash. Carried the bags home and I got to work. Linda wasn't home. She'd gone out with her friends. Some shopping trip that would probably last until dinner. Good. I started with the front door, removed the old deadbolt, installed the new one, heavy duty. Reinforced steel, then the back door, then the side door that led to the garage. Finally, I walked upstairs to the master bedroom. I stood in front of the padlock Linda had installed, the shiny brass one that had kept me out of my own room for 30 days. I pulled out my bolt cutters. The lock fell to the floor with a satisfying clang. I pushed open the door, and I saw what she'd done. My mother's dresser was gone, just gone. A cheap vanity table sat in its place. Covered in Linda's things, my father's knitstand had been painted over white, erasing the original walnut finish he'd so carefully sanded and stained the walls. My walls, the ones my mother had painted a soft sage green when I was 12, were covered with Linda's artwork, abstract prints in garish colors that clashed with everything. My parents' bed, the iron frame they'd found at an estate sale on their 5th anniversary, was buried under Linda's silk sheets and too many pillows. I wanted to vomit, but I didn't have time for feelings. I worked fast, bagged Linda's belongings, all of them, clothes, makeup, the tacky artwork, the silk sheets, everything that was hers. I dragged the bags to the hallway, piled them against the wall. Then I installed the new lock on the bedroom door, my lock, my key. By the time I was done, it was nearly 6 p.m. I sat on my bed and waited. I heard Linda's car pull up at 6:47 p.m., heard her heels on the front porch. The familiar click, 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 then the sound of her key in the lock, or trying to be. What the key didn't work anymore. I heard her try again and again, then the banging started. Megan! Her voice was shrill, panicked. Megan, open this door. I walked slowly down the stairs, stood in the entryway, looked at her through the window beside the door. She looked unhinged, hair, messy makeup, smeared eyes, wild. Let me in. No, this is my home. This is my house. You were given 30 days notice. The 30 days are up. You can't do this. I'll call the police. Please do. I'd love to explain to them how you've been squatting in my property, destroying my belongings, threatening me. Linda's face went white. Your things are in the hallway. I continued. I'll leave them on the porch. You have until tomorrow morning to collect them. You bitch. Goodbye. Linda. I closed the curtain. She screamed for another hour, banged on the doors. The windows threatened to sue, to call the news, to make me pay. I sat in my room, and waited. Eventually, the screaming stopped. I heard a car pull up, one of Linda's friends, probably heard voices muffled, then fading, then silence. I went to the window, watched Linda's car disappear down the street, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Linda didn't go quietly. The lawsuit came 3 weeks later. She claimed wrongful eviction, emotional distress, spousal rights to the property. Gerald handled it. It's baseless, he said calmly. The trust documentation is ironclad. She has no legal claim to the house. Then why is she suing? Because she's angry and desperate and hoping you'll settle just to make it go away. I'm not settling. I didn't think you would. The case was dismissed 6 months later. Linda's attorney dropped her shortly after. Turns out she couldn't pay his fees. I learned later she'd been living off credit cards. The insurance money she thought she'd inherit didn't exist. The settlement she expected from my father's estate never came. She'd gambled everything on marrying my father. She'd lost the last I heard. She'd moved back to wherever she came from, some small town in another state. She was renting an apartment, working part-time at a real estate office, the kind of job she'd sworn she'd never do again. No more wealthy husbands, no more family estates, no more free rides. I don't feel sorry for her, maybe I should, but every time I think about forgiving her, I think about my mother's jewelry box on the floor, my father's robe on her shoulders, my parents' wedding photo tossed aside for a beach selfie. Some things you don't forgive. It's been 2 years now. The house is quiet, peaceful. I repainted the master bedroom that same sage green my mother loved. I found a furniture restorer who was able to fix my father's knitstand. Stripped the white paint away, brought back the original walnut. You can still see the ghost of the damage if you look closely, but that's okay. Scars tell stories. I hung my parents' wedding photo back in its place. Found a frame that matched the original sometimes. Late at night I sit in my mother's reading chair, the one I found at an estate sale 2 towns over, almost identical to the one Linda threw away, and I read the old books my father loved. I talk to them. Sometimes my parents tell them about my day, about the garden I'm planting in the backyard, about the promotion I got at work, about the man I'm seeing, Ryan. He's kind, patient, doesn't rush anything. He understands why I need to take things slow. He sounds nice. I imagine my dad saying, but does he know how to change a tire? I laugh at that, cry a little too, but mostly I just feel grateful for the house, the history, the generations of love soaked into these walls, grateful for the father who saw through the mask at the end, who tried to protect me even when he was dying, grateful for the strength I found when I needed it most. Linda thought she could take everything from me. She was wrong. This house was built on love, on sacrifice, on generations of people who held on and didn't let go, and I am the latest in that line. I will not be the last. Sometimes, when I'm feeling particularly brave, I walk through the house room by room, touch the walls, the door frames, the worn spots on the hardwood where 4 generations of feet have walked. I think about my great-grandfather hammering nails in 1952, building something to last. I think about my grandmother baking cookies in the kitchen while my father did homework at the table. I think about my mother reading to me by the window while the birds sang outside. I think about my father holding my hand at the end and telling me he was proud. And I think about Linda, the woman who tried to steal all of this, who saw this house as just another asset, another line item, another thing to take and sell and discard. She'll never understand what she tried to destroy. She'll never know why she failed, because houses aren't just bricks and boards and mortgage payments. They're memorias, they're history, they're proof that love can outlast anything, even death, and you can't put a lock on that.